implementation tools, and I do see several chairs on, and this should be a part of your annual evaluation. All right, so just really quickly, as I said, the tools are in the, or the policies are in the chat. For the UNC system, we are supposed to evaluate all full-time, tenured, and continuing faculty. At NCCU, it's all teaching faculty. So that's full-time, fixed-term, adjunct, tenure track, as well as tenured. So everybody should be a part of that. For the UNC system, it's all reviews of faculty whose work plans include annual reviews, reappointment, promotion and tenure, and post-tenure review. And the same is true for NCCU. For peer assessment for NCCU, it is an observation of teaching performance in face-to-face and online courses. It's every semester for non-tenured faculty and once per academic year for tenured faculty. Also included in that are the course materials. So that's going to be the objectives for the course that should be stated on your syllabi. Also reviewing the assignment, and it's one course per year until all of the courses that a faculty member teach are evaluated. For the UNC system, they encourage continuous informal feedback along the way, and we'll talk a little bit about that. For us at NCCU, SRIs will suffice. What we will talk about is sometimes SRIs don't always give the true story or doesn't give enough information for some people. Dr. Malone and I have a different perspective on that. So maybe we do want to incorporate, or not maybe, we do want to incorporate some informal assessments that you can get back from your students as feedback that's directly to you. And then, of course, self-assessment. And that might or might not be a part of your annual evaluation plan already. All right, so how teaching effectiveness is defined, it's providing student-centered learning. So not what's centered for us or what we've learned or how we learn best, but really student-centered learning that has assessment experiences in line with clearly articulated learning objectives. For those who have been coming to OFPD, we know everything goes back to the learning objectives. Every reading, every assignment, the course structure has to go back to the learning objectives. And of course, it should be relevant to your particular discipline and or course. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to implement regularly revised content. So if you still are using content from 2015 that was really outstanding in 2015, you're behind. Even if you haven't taken in the fact of how AI is shaping our course material and how students are approaching work, you're behind. So that's just within the last couple of years. So we want to regularly revise content and pedagogical techniques that are current, that are research informed and rigorous. So that means that we can't always rely on, even though something might have really worked well back in the day, back in the day really might be just 2 years ago, that we do need to give attention to making sure that we are current and up to date and have research informed techniques. So the first thing that we are going to talk about are peer evaluations. And so a peer assessment or peer evaluation is the process of conducting faculty peers using elements such as observation of instruction and reviewing teaching portfolios and so on and so forth. So as we said in our policy, it's including both the observation, the performance of teaching, as well as your materials. And so really quickly, by a show of hands, how many people, we'll just start with this first one, how many people, and those two questions should be separated. We're just going to do the first one. How many people know that your department has a standard observation tool? All right, I see a few. All right, and Dr. Malone, can you see everybody? Okay, I don't see a whole lot of hands, or maybe I missed them. So it's probably more people who did not raise their hand than actually did. So that's the first thing that we want to do. And of course, so the question also is raised, you don't have to answer this, is should the online courses have a different tool? Possibly. We'll talk about that in a second. And then the second thing is, how many of you meet with your observer after the observation to discuss it? So you've had a peer come in and observe your class, and you actually meet with the observer. All right, I see 2 hands raised.
I saw a 6 in the first question. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. All right. And then um, the last question, and somebody can come off of mute and talk about this, is who's defined as your peer? So who can be your peer? Or who should be your peer? Is that just the department chairs?
In our department, that question has been a bone of contention
So what are some of
because
the issues?
some of the tenured faculty don't believe non-tenured faculty should be reviewing them.
Okay.
And I would argue some of our non-tenured faculty are better teachers than some of our tenured.
Okay. All right. Dr.
So,
Paul. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
so
Dr.
yeah, so
Janelle.
that's a bone of contention in this department.
Okay. So that's definitely something to discuss. Dr. Paul, I saw your hand up.
Well, I was going to just say that I think, anybody who is an instructor in the department, a full-time instructor in the department, can be a valuable reviewer. In general, like I can see why faculty might say what Dr. Gannett said, that they want people in the same category as them. But in my mind, the value here is the growth mindset of what can be learned and gained. And I think that's where Dr. Gannett's point is so valuable. A lot can be learned from like a practitioner instructor, or other people with other teaching backgrounds.
Absolutely. I think that I can learn, and I feel like I'm a pretty seasoned instructor in the classroom, but there are lots of people that I can learn from, even different approaches. So, but that is something to discuss. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Malone, who is going to talk about how can we, make sure that we have some structured, making sure we all have a tool that everybody uses in the department. So your department needs to decide on that, and maybe even addressing this question of who is your peer. So Dr. Malone.
Well, would you put up the first tool?
Oops, I think I have to stop and then reshare. All right. What do you see?
Not the tool.
You don't see the tool.
No, we don't see it. And we tried to make sure everything is
says
seamless.
paused. Hold on. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Resume. Uh-oh. I am sorry.
Well, do I need to pull them up myself, or?
No, it's saying resume, but I can't. Your screen sharing is paused. So how do I unpause it? Okay, let me stop. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop totally. All right, let's redo it.
Pull up the document, then share it.
No, I do have the document up. It's just, it is not letting me. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, is that it?
All right, that's it.
Okay.
All right, now I got to get my flow back, guys. So here, what you will see is a tool that we used when I was chair, but I found the tool actually at a conference, and the person who was doing her presentation talked about all of the research that went into creating this. And so I just adopted it for my department when I was chair, but I also have adopted it when different chairs and faculty members have asked me to come in. So what I'm showing you right there is that tool. It has indicators of effective teaching. This was a real observation, so I've changed the name to Dr. Donald Duck. And you can see where this is a moment in time, which is what I want folks to know. It's a snapshot. So I can't see maybe all of the effective teaching strategies in one lesson if the lesson doesn't lend itself to that. But as you can see, instead of saying met or not met, we put down not observed. So that means I didn't see it. Doesn't mean you didn't do it or don't do it. I didn't see it at the time. More emphasis is recommended. So even though we had identified what are some effective strategies or indicators, instead of just saying, you didn't do it, I'm like, okay, I think you may need to work on this more. So you can see in this faculty member, there were several need to, more emphasis was recommended, and then accomplished, and when the person accomplished it very well, it was outstanding. You can see that. And so would you scroll down a little bit, Dr. White, to show that, again, we had some narrative, still use the met, not observed or needs more emphasis. And so these were other things that were indicator, but it also gave me as the observer, if you can see in the highlighted, some feedback. So just, for the instructor was enthused and energetic. No new content was what was being taught. The review portion of the lesson involved the same 5 students. It was not clear what the students learned or what was supported or supposed to learn from the lesson or the activities used. So there was enthusiasm, but I mean, and they did that well, but the feedback, I wasn't sure if everybody understood. So go down a little further, Dr. White, because look at all of the comments. So you can sit in that room and make the comments, give the feedback, and then that person can use it later when we talk about using it for your self-reflection. And so at the end, I signed that I was the observer. I gave it back to the person because the chair just wanted me to give the person feedback. We were trying not to use it as something punitive. So then we have taken this same tool. So Dr. White, would you show us the one that we use for the Department of Theater? So we sat down and looked at the indicators of effective teaching that would be specific to that subject area or that discipline. And some of the statements we use the same thing. We still stayed with the not observed, the more emphasis is recommended, accepted. And one of the things we did as a department, I met and went over this with the whole department, is we looked at making it a little bit better to read with the blue and the white, but we also laid out the process. So everybody that was in the room was trained in the document. Everybody agreed what the process was. The observer will contact the faculty member to schedule a convenient time for the observation when there are no tests. So we don't want to have a drop in if you're going to have an observer, and we want to make sure we're having a lesson. Observer is expected to remain for the entire class session. That means being there when the students arrive. I forgot to turn my video. Be in the room when the students arrive, be in the room when they leave. See the whole process. Each observer shall sign and submit to the department chair and the faculty member. So the observer will sign and submit it to the department chair and to the faculty member, the completed observation form within 1 week. Because you can see all the notes I had in that previous one. It'll take a while. You let the person know, give me a week to go get my notes straight to send this to you in a nice format. The completed faculty observation form will be placed in the faculty member's personnel file. So we know this. The faculty member shall be asked to sign the original observation report. The faculty member may attach comments. And then the department chairperson will sit down and discuss the observation with the faculty member. Now, nowhere in here did they say that the observer would sit down and talk with the faculty member first. You have to feel like if you guys are going to be comfortable with that in your department. But that person did get a copy. So scroll down a little bit, Dr. White. So as you can see, we still had the same statements there that we had on the other one. They kept these. So you can put down whether the person needed more expertise or whatever have you, need more emphasis if they was not observed. And then here was a space to get some comments so that you can address. And we decided that the knowledge of the subject matter of the discipline was important. So there's a statement about that. Course preparation organization was important. That was there. Clarity and understandability. So there was a statement about. So those are the things that the observer would be looking for and making some comment on. And then last but not least, Dr. White, for your online, you can come up with the same type of adapted peer evaluation tool using the Quality Matters for online courses. So we have done that as well. We did not put all of these in there, but we did pick out some that were key. But you also can use this tool as well as an indicator because it is listing those teaching effective and there's practices in that list. So those are just some suggestions on your peer evaluation, how to come up with something that's standard. Everybody that is going to be observed, whether you're going to be an observer or not, you should be trained in the tool so you know what people are going to be looking at. There won't be any surprise when someone comes into your class. That's it, Dr. White. You can.
All right.
Anybody have any questions? Then maybe we can just kind of pause right there for a minute. If any questions about a tool or.
I do. Do you have a separate tool for online instruction versus face-to-face, or are they the same?
I use the Quality Matters. I actually did the same thing. I took the Quality Matters rubric. I don't have one here for you to see like I did the other one, and just do the same thing. Just observe, not observe, or did happen or didn't happen. But I like to use the QM because that's what we use for our online courses, and we Quality Matters certify them. I would like to pull for some of those indicators, but really you still want to make sure as far as the subject matter go that you have some indicators of what effective teaching looks like in kinesiology.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jessica, I see your hand is raised.
Yes. So I didn't see any point values associated with those things. Because we do use, and I think it's required by the faculty handbook that peer reviews be done every year, and that in addition to that, they have to be part of the annual evaluation. And so there needs to be some points assigned to it so that you can then incorporate it into your evaluation of the faculty, unless I'm not thinking about that correctly.
I know I wouldn't say that. I would just say that where we have not observed, need more emphasis, you can certainly do a Likert kind of number with that. But what we're
Okay.
looking at, so you can just put a number with that.
Okay.
But just to take the pressure off for peer evaluation, is feedback. So it just depending on your department, where we came from in the School of Ed, the chair had to do an observation as well, and that got to be maybe more quantitative. So, but it's up to you. Basically, what we're looking at is make sure you come with a tool that you agree on and that the indicators everyone knows about, and those indicators are, representing teaching effectiveness, say, in criminal justice.
Okay, thank you.
And Jessica, just to offer I understand what you're saying in terms of the evaluation, but I do think that there's something to not assigning points, so it doesn't feel like a gotcha. So it really is an opportunity for us to provide support for one another. So this is what I observed. This might be what you can do. I mean, unless somebody is just really derelict in their duties, I don't know if we should be penalized if we still are just growing in the classroom, if that makes sense. And I don't know how you differentiate that, but it's something about not, and I try to make everybody that I observe to say, this is not about getting you. It's just about observing where you are. And I mean, and that's for me as well.
I also see it as formative and not summative.
Right. And there's something to say about that, Dr. White, but because to what extent are people inflating scores when they are quantitative to make sure that this person doesn't, have a beef against me or but when it's part of your annual evaluation, at some point, points has got to be assigned, so that you can then make sense of the annual evaluation.
Also, you got your student ratings of student ratings also have point values, quantitative values.
All right.
So it's a combination, a blend, I think.
Something's going on. I'm getting phone calls after phone calls. So
Okay. Dr. Paul.
Yeah, thanks. I just posted in the chat the high level competency or proficiency based rubric that I use. It's so maybe the spacing is a little confusing, but it's proficient. It goes exemplary, proficient, and developing. And so I think that when we use points, it has a number of different problems that you all point out. Dr. Gino mentioned that people inflate points to try to meet certain thresholds, that points can feel punitive or gotcha, like you said, Dr. White. And I think really like the way rubrics work, and you all have seen my presentation on rubrics before, but the way rubrics work, it takes out some of that guesswork. And so I really like using this just 3-category instructional evaluation, because a faculty member can be exemplary, as in literally an example for their faculty. They can be proficient and they do their job well, and they might do it differently than I do it, but they do their job well. Or they could be developing. They're not yet meeting the proficiency standards that we need for our department, or that you would need for any given program. So I definitely encourage us to have clear rubrics that think at this high level and at the I think anything that can reinforce a growth mindset and can reinforce this competency and proficiency based element gives people just so much more ability to meet it than some sort of secret code of points and things like that.
Very good. Thank you for that. And the last thing I will add to the peer review, and I just happened to be talking to my dean about who does it. So I know in my department, it's the senior faculty, the tenure faculty that do everybody. We did that, and then it was so many. So then we included the tenure track. But I thought that this was a really interesting approach, and maybe some of the chairs on was the person knows you need to do one every semester or every year. And so it's on them to get the peer review done. So that's another way. So just thinking about how to approach that. And I took that to my chair. He was like, yeah, that's what I used to do at my old institution. And I said, I think I like that much better because what happens is the senior faculty, at least in Mass Comm, we look up and it's like, oh my God, it's the end of March. It's April. We haven't done this. And so if you put it on the onus of the faculty member, that is an option to consider. But there's more than one way to do it. So we just want to put everything out there. All right, so continuing on. So that was the peer evaluation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the student feedback tools. So of course, for our policy, it says that SRIs are acceptable and that's all we need. And that's fine, but we don't necessarily, that's not helpful to you during the semester. So really the UNC policy encourages informal feedback throughout the semester. And then there's some things that you can do. And at least for me and what I shared with Dr. Malone, and she was like, oh no, SRIs as a department chair were very instructive for me, but oftentimes I'm not getting the same low mark in an area. I might have been low in this particular class, but it could have been the exact same course. And it was a different thing. So I always found as the faculty, the SRIs didn't always give me information that was useful. So what I started to do was to create course surveys. And I incorporate that into the course. I think I like Blackboard better because the Blackboard really did disassociate the name. I think some kind of way in Canvas this past year that I use it, I could see what the students say. And I'm transparent. I can see what it is that you're saying. But I'm asking about specific things. It might be the readings. It might be the assignments. It might be about the format. When I rechanged or went to the motivational syllabus, I asked for feedback on the syllabus. So things that the SRIs are not necessarily going to ask, we can ask that. We should ask it regularly, and we'll talk about what Start, Stop, and Continue. One of our colleagues, one of the faculty fellows, Caressa Gerald, has developed, and we encourage you to do that in the middle of the semester, but it really can be done at any time. And I see a question, so we'll take that question.
Marquita has a question.
Yes, thank you. We're doing kind of the same thing in the RNBSN program, the mid-session surveys. But I wondered about your approach to increasing your numbers for the in-semester SRIs. That's been difficult for us because we cannot be punitive is what I'm hearing. And so I don't know what your thoughts are there.
Well, I'll open that up to anyone. What I do personally, so I don't know if it's right, is I tell the class that I need at least 75% of the class to participate, and I give them 5 points. Now, 5 points out of 1,000, it's not going to break up your grade, but they want those 5 points. And when I say I need 75%, they are putting pressure on each other. Hey, did you do that? I hear them reminding each other about that. And so for the most part, I usually get a really good showing. Now, somebody might disagree with that. We shouldn't give any type of points. But like I said, 5 points out of 1,000 is not going to make or break your grade. If somebody else has some suggestions on how to get more participation, definitely like to hear that.
I did it as part of one of the last classes and just do it in real time. So
Okay.
you can, I mean, if you're online, just stop like we did, put the link in, get the folks to do it, and that helps as well to do it in real time. I think I don't mind giving incentives as well, but that's another way.
And with mine, I will do 75% of. Now, the reality is we can't get the actual names of the people who've done it. I don't ever tell them that. But so, because I say, I don't know who the 75% is, but they definitely put the pressure on each other. Dr. Woodson-Smith?
Yes, so I will usually do it at the end as well, but I do the incentive component and I seek 100%. And so I always have them what is it? So, select the send proof. So that way the names come back to me so that I know who has completed it. And then I give them a score in the grade book so that they can see that they have completed it. And I just stay on them until I get just about 100%.
All right, so that's good. So do you give them extra if you get 100? So I get something if I do it, and then extra if you get 100.
No, you just get extra if you do it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. All right. So this is from Professor Gerald's presentation on start, continue. Some of you may have participated in this workshop, but this is something that we encourage you to do at least mid-semester, but it's not too late. You can do that. So even for next semester in planning, what should I stop doing? What should I start doing? What should I continue doing? And then here are some of the examples that she came up with, or was some of the feedback. So stop, sometimes you go through the slides really fast. Okay, that's really good feedback for me to do that. Do more in-class assignments or continue pop quizzes to keep me focused. So again, these were all of the feedback or examples of the feedback. And this is good information for us, especially when we are actually in the middle of teaching. And something really simple is something simple to create if you want to do it in Canvas or if you want to do it with paper. And I think the other one was actually giving out cards. And I think this one is I learned best. Is this the I've learned best, Dr. Malone?
Yes. So you just have, it's called the postcard. What do we call it? Something about the postcard. Point of view postcards.
Point of view.
And
That's
so,
what I meant.
yes. And you have two statements. I have learned the most in this class when and they fill in the rest. I might learn more in this class if we could do. So I'm learning really well with what you're doing. And I would learn better if you would do this. And I just want to say that Dr. Graham put in the chat that the stop, start, continue has really been helpful in her classes. So I don't know if she wanted to chime in how she's used it. But those are just two ways you can get student feedback before the student ratings of instruction, because that feedback is too late for you to do anything about those students and the concerns or challenges they may have.
But yet this is still, to me, for me personally, it gives way more information than I just got a low score on the SRI, because now it's telling me what I've done well or what I can improve on. So it's taking that. And then she also has an assignment analysis. So this is also a part of that workshop. So looking at the assignment, asking how much time that they spent, were the directions clear? So yes or no. Were the evaluation criteria clear, and asking them for suggestions? How much did I learn? And then suggestions for improvement. And that's something that you can do and it doesn't take that long. You can do that with every assignment that you have. So just keep that in mind. So SRRs are good, and that's all we need. But getting that continuous feedback helps us to be better. All right, and so the last component of the workshop, or I'm sorry, of the policy is self-assessment. So self-assessment is something, hopefully it might be a part of, I know in my department, we include a narrative about our teaching. I'm not sure if it's as deliberate as the self-assessment, but we want to be very deliberate in our review and identifying specific strategies for improvement. And all of us, even if we're at the top of our game, can always find something to improve. And we want to identify formative strategies to continue developing skill in teaching. So again, we don't want to rest on wewerethebomb.com in 2020. And this is now 2025. We want to go, okay, I was really good in 2020, and I'm continuing to learn new things in 2025. So let me just go. Oh, okay. So this is you, Dr. Malone. I'll pull this up. So what Dr. Malone is going to go over are the AQ indicators of teaching effectiveness, looking at how we assess our grading model. And then we'll talk about connecting the feedback to the goals, to your goals and objectives, and then a reflection on the instructor behaviors as well as the quality matter. So let me stop really quickly.
While she's pulling that up, do we have any questions? Dr. Graham, do you want to comment on how you use start, continue, since you put that unsolicited testimony in there?
Okay. I've been communications in the School of Business, and I've used that several times in my classes and try to it's helped me see the value of doing periodic assessment for student learning. So I will just do exactly what was presented. I'll ask them to, and I won't ask them to put their name on it, but I'll ask them to give me one thing, if they can think of one thing that I should stop doing, one thing they'd like to see start doing, and then one thing that's worked really well that they think we should continue doing. And I've gotten some really good feedback. I was surprised sometimes at the things that I thought they would have immediately said, oh, you should stop doing this. That those were some of the things that they thought that I should continue. So the kind of, I can't think of an example right now, obviously, but what I found is that sometimes, that cognitive bias, that negative bias, sometimes we can focus as instructors on the students who are not engaged or the students who are struggling in whatever way or how we're struggling, and having this actual data of what the students think can kind of show if we're actually figuring out what's true in our classes, or if we're focusing on maybe just an outlier or some things that are not indicative of how the whole class feels or perceives your teaching or the class itself.
Thank you. I did hear from a faculty member last week when I was at the AI event who said that Stop, Start, Continue has just transformed her student ratings of instruction, that they have improved as a result of her learning early on how she can pivot her course for student success. So again, it's a good tool. All right, so assessing your grading model. Those of you who have taken AQ, micro-credentials, or the year-long certification, they have some wonderful, wonderful tools. It's just, if you haven't had an opportunity, I am recruiting for anybody who's interested in taking the AQ AI 6 modules of training. I have 60 slots. I think I got about 10 more left. So, if you haven't taken it before, please do that. But this is one of the ones they have. And basically, they're just using the questions, again, as great indicators of teacher effectiveness, and talking about the categories on accuracy, consistency, and learning value. So if you can just see this really well, I think if you X out Dr. White, whatever the bookmarks may be, it'll be a little bigger, but I can see it. So if everybody would just take a minute and just look at the consistency, there's 3 questions. And I'm gonna give you a minute to think about it. And then I just, yeah, that's great. And I would just ask anybody, if they just show up hands, is this something I need to think about? So, does your grading system ensures fairness? Does your grading system avoid biases in situations where there are multiple graders? Does your grading system ensure consistency in grading from student to student? So do you do rubrics, or the person turned it in on pink paper and it smelled good and you just gave them a better grade, or somebody handwritten it, or somebody, typed it. So, so you're saying, yes, I do all of these things, then excellent. But I had a faculty member a couple of weeks ago, brand new faculty member, first workshop she had come to. And when she did the learning value, she was very transparent and saying, I have a whole lot of these that I have not checked. I'm going to have to work on that. And that's what that self-assessment or that self-reflection will do for you. So we're going to also include this one so you can do your self-assessment or your self-reflection, and we will add that. So Dr. White, would you show the next one? So this is an AI, an AQ, Association of College and University Educators indicator. Some of you who have taken this may have this already, or you forgot about it, but we will give it to you again. Here's another one. Reflect on instructors' behavior that impact classroom civility. You got students who are talking on their phones, or they coming in late, leaving early, or don't come at all. So what are the indicators? So what I like about this is, again, there's no numbers associated to this. This is just for your personal feedback and self-reflection. I am well prepared for my classes. Do you come in like some faculty members on 2 wheels just before class come? Are you just winging it? And so what's the impact on students if you're doing it? They're not being prepared can lead to downtime in the classroom, leaving an opening for disruptive behavior to take place. So it's like, even us transitioning now between this, they give some people downtime. So I try to do a little filler. And then here's suggestions. So we're not just going to leave you out there hanging. this tool actually tell you, be prepared by having materials and handouts organized and ready. Those of you who come to my workshop, everything is already laid out. There's no downtime for whatever I'm going to be doing in that workshop. You have your mat, you got your tools. Stop being a victim, folks. So all the students don't come to class prepared. Well, have some pencils. Students don't buy the book. The open education resource. See Jessica. Okay, so let's stop being a victim. So I arrived to class on time. Do you? Are you coming in behind the students? Or are you there to greet them at the door? So those things, you want to slide down. So it's a 2-pager. Would you go to the next one? So just looking at some more indicators. Students see me as the authority figure in the classroom.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
Yeah. I always say we
Is
can't
that the
teach.
second page?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I always say we can't teach students we're afraid of. Some folks say, oh, they're intimidating. Okay, that's on another workshop. Balance authority. So what happens, how the students have balance authority with approachability to create an instructional persona that encourage civility. When I was a principal, I would have students come to the office and I'm like, why you cut up in Miss Jones' class? You don't cut up in Miss Smith class. And I'm telling you, these are middle school students. They'll say, Miss Smith don't play. So what message do we send in our body that students say it's okay to have open season on you, but they go to Dr. White's class and they behave, or they're there? Or I have some faculty say, students, we have problems with attendance. I would assure you that Dr. White, Dr. Caressa, Gerald, they do not have problems with attendance with their students coming. But so we need to say why, what's happening in that class. And so here's some suggestions. Stand and move throughout the classroom. You can't, I walk past classes, people sitting at the desk, one person that's sitting with his legs crossed. Refer to your own scholarship in class where appropriate. This establishes you as an authority on the subject and it elevates you in your students' eyes. Walk around the room, stand but teach from the back, do something different. So again, this tool will be given to you. It's a way for you to self-reflect, but it's also going to let you know how it impacts the students if you're not doing this as often as you should, and then what you can do. And I think those were the two. Then what I just want to refer to you is your student ratings of instructions are things that you can use for your self-reflection. Also, the quality matters, the stop, start, continue. All of those are things that not only are you giving, feedback, but it's saying, what do I do with this now? And then that goes into your faculty success plan. As a former department chair, when I would sit down with my faculty to go over their annual plan, I would just look at those indicators and say, where are you failing? Where are you scoring below the department average? Do you notice that in all the 4 classes you're teaching, number 15, item 15 and item 9 are being marked low? So how would you put this in your goals and objectives for next year? Then when you give me those goals and objectives in the fall, I would like to see that you try to address what you're going to do. Now, some of us need a plan of action where folks don't know. It's like scout burn, that there's a problem. So when you do an action plan or a success plan for your faculty members, then you might need to say, go to the Office of E-Learning, go to the Office of Faculty Professional Development. I took this workshop with Dr. Gerald. Let's see if you can get her to sit down with you, or I'll bring that workshop to our department. So did I go too far, Dr. White? Because I know this. Okay.
No, because it falls right into the next thing, which is incorporating this in your annual evaluation. So of course, this is kind of specifically for the chairs, but also I think, we work best when we all know and we all are aware. So in order to document that we've done these 3 things, so that's the peer evaluation, that's the self-assessment, and the student feedback. So again, we probably already were doing some form of that, is to make sure that it is a part of your annual review. And not just that, but it needs to go back even with our teaching goals and objectives that are in the faculty work plan. That should be a part of that. So at the end of this year, when you get the feedback from the peer evaluations as well as the SRIs, what can I identify that I can work on for next year? So how can I do that? And then just to make sure that all chairs are meeting with all faculty as a part of their evaluation process. So that's really important to do. We don't want to just give the written evaluation, and that's that, but to meet with faculty and actually identify what are the goals. So all of us should have some form of goal, even though if we, again, are the bomb.com this year, then how am I going to be the bomb.com part 2 next year? So what is that? And so that really has to be a part of that. So just making sure. So the main thing that we wanted to cover is to make sure that everybody was aware that we do have a policy that probably we already have been doing. So it's not necessarily new, but it's a good time to stop and go, if I'm a department chair, have I been doing all that I am expected to do as a chair? And then B, when we have the information, even as a faculty, we know what is expected of us. And so with that, we will just take questions. If you could take just a few minutes to complete the evaluation, but we are here to take any questions or comments. Oh, and I meant to put that in the link. Hold on.
Dr. White, I put the link.
Oh, you did? Okay, I was going to say,
and then they can
do that.
use either one. They can either
Okay.
use the link or the QR code.
Okay, very good. So the link is in the chat and then the QR code. So any questions or comments? So things that you have done that work well in your department, or yes, my department is on the money in terms of what the expectation is. So this was just a review.
And I would like to say you can reach out to the Office of Faculty Professional Development, because we have worked with mass comm and theater to just facilitate the development of your tool, to make sure we list the process so it's transparent to everybody, how we're going to proceed, who you can identify who would be an observer. I'm thinking, I don't even know if we can use somebody outside in the field or someone from another department, because are we looking at pedagogy? Are we looking at subject matter? And does it really matter that a assistant professor can observe a full professor or an associate? Or do we have long-term adjuncts? We have non-tenure track instructors who've been here for 20 years. So I would encourage that we not necessarily get caught up in status, but who's going to give us the best feedback, who has maybe taken some training. I had even suggested that we look at folks who've come through some AQ training, some micro credentials or certification. So hats off to Jessica and Dr. Paul, Dr. Gano, who have come through a lot of stuff in the Office of Faculty Professional Development, that have a strong background into instructional leadership. And so, that has helped, I'm sure, for them to be a little bit more, insightful.
I had, I guess it was about 15 years ago when I was here, and we had a training by Dr. Maticia out of education. And that was the first time, just kind of like that professor that you were talking about earlier, who said, "Oh God, I'm up here thinking you're doing your best dog and pony show, and really you are not." So it was amazing that, I mean, you have that, when you have that epiphany, then you become like a sponge and really want to know everything. So I wasn't a teacher, I was a subject matter expert, but I wasn't a teacher. And that one training just told me I needed help. So.
And as Dr. White will tell me, initially when she was learning Kagan and how to do structures and structure your classroom for engagement, she said, I have now become so critical now that I know more. And when I'm looking for things. So the more you know, the more pedagogy, the more teaching effectiveness strategies that you have. The more in tune you are. And if we need to just train why not have a training for observers? Everybody can go through that training, and they've done 2 hours, 3 hours of training on how to observe and look, and that could help too.
Professor Lyons-Smith.
I'm almost afraid to ask this question, but the tools are very objective. These are really awesome tools that you're sharing with us. I think sometimes faculty are concerned or worried about being objective because they know that it's going to go in their file and they're concerned about how it will affect them. So I'm wondering about your approach when it comes to that.
Objective?
Well, no, what I'm saying is I feel like this is a great tool, but sometimes faculty members can be a bit hesitant when, observing and submitting the information based off of what they're observing because they know that their turn is coming. And I think that's kind of a human response sometimes. And just wondering if you've encountered that, how you kind of deal with that. I mean, kind of, anybody's thoughts in that area.
Well, I have done mock. Why not do a simulation? I can remember when anybody been here long enough to remember Bernice Johnson. And she said, during the summer, you was going to come and she paid you and fed you and you came from 4 to 8 at night for 4 straight days. And what we did was just let some faculty do a 10-minute presentation and take the rubric and see what you say. I mean, you got to train people to look for it. So if you want Dr. White or you have someone who's really good. Oh, and AQ got wonderful videos. You all remember that? Dr. Cano and Dr. Paul, where they say, here's the strategy. And they got a little 3-minute video of somebody doing something. What did they do well? And what did they not do well? So have your little rubric and see what you can check off. We did that with the caring one. Here's the characteristics of a caring faculty member. We got a video. Was the person caring or not? So I would just say you got to train the trainer, Marquita. I hope that helped, but I can certainly give you some suggestions on that where you can just have some of your folks either online, if you're doing an online tool, have someone do like a 5 or 10-minute lesson and let's just practice.
I think that's a great idea, especially if you have the entire faculty there, you do the simulation, and so it's not internalized as much. Thank you.
I mean, it's hard to be criticized if you're on the end of the observation, right? But we just want to make this so normalized that we can't improve unless we have feedback. So, as Jessica just said, or the image of me, I'm a cat, but I think I'm a lion. What I see is a lion looking back at me, but no, you really just a house cat. We never know that unless we're getting some feedback. So if we kind of take and that's why I said objective, I do want it to be objective and not necessarily subjective, and just saying, I am the bomb.com, but I can be even better. And then the next year I can be even better. And we aren't going to change everything at one time. So I'm just going to pick these 1 or 2 things that I'm going to work on this year and then see what happens. And then the following year we do something else. So, yeah. And then Dr. Jose Hyman, we're going to put everything in the Canvas shell because we want you to go to the Canvas shell and see all the wonderful materials. So all the materials from here, as well as the links, will be there.
After I just said yes, but that's only.
Oh, you said
Monique.
yes. Okay.
Oh, no, for Monique only, because we do send you a certificate. Everybody will get a certificate from Miss Ebony Stuckey, and I could put it in there, but every time we send an email individually to upload all of those 5 or 6, it's going to be a lot. But yes, we will be uploading it in the our Canvas. But you also can send an email out to everybody through Canvas, and that could just be one time. So we will try to make sure you get it in Canvas, and we can ask Miss Stuckey if she's willing to just send an email out to everybody that was on this, but through Canvas, so it's only one time.
And then the last thing, and I'll get to you, Dr. Graham, the one thing with the UNC policy is we'll also send the link for the tools. They have a ton of evaluation tools that you can use. So we just wanted to give you kind of the quick and dirty right now. It's April, the end of the semester. This is what you need to do. But even next year, I'm really excited. I'm going to be organizing some teaching squares. And the teaching squares are really 4 people that are squares, and they're going to evaluate each other. At least we probably at least do it in cash, but really it's beneficial to do it across campus. And with that, kind of even addressing the issue that Jessica had mentioned, it's not about evaluating. It's almost like you're observing and going, what could I incorporate or do? So it's a part of the self-reflection. So in that, we'll also give the tools. So lots and lots of tools, especially for that student feedback that's regular, not just at the end of the semester, even at the beginning of the semester. But this was just to get us started. Okay, Dr. Graham.
I just was going to say that I'm really interested in any training that you all do on this for observers, because I know from teaching presentation skills that when you have multiple faculty teaching the same course, you periodically have to sync up your grading to make sure that you're grading across the board. You know, if you've got the same rubric, it should come out the same, but it doesn't necessarily. So periodically, everyone has to watch the same presentation and grade it and make sure that the grading is synced across the sections, as it were. So that would be, I think that'd be really helpful to have some training.
Dr. Malone does come to departments. So she came to the Department of Mass Communication for all those who are evaluating, and we did that. So that would definitely be a good consideration, especially for the chairs that are on, is just making sure that everyone is trained in the same tool. So sign up for a department workshop and we can come to you. All right, I think that is it. I'm gonna let everyone who needs to go, but Jose has a question that I think could be useful to some people. It probably wouldn't be applicable to all disciplines, but Jose, do you want to ask it, or you want me to?
I mean, I'll let you frame it, since I spoke to you and Dr. Malone in the chat and figured we should discuss later.
Oh,
yes, we should discuss later, but you could reframe the issue in case others have similar issues.
Okay, so the thing, I'm just going to read what you said was,
oh, heavens, no.
How does teaching DEI and social equity in our courses align with these effective teaching standards with the new regulations or guidelines? Oh, Dr. Malone, you're talking good, but on mute.
I said it doesn't address it specifically because, first of all, we know what it is about DEI and equity and those buzzwords. We even learned last week that the new buzzword that we shouldn't be using anymore is shared governance. So it just goes on and on. But if your department sits down and develop a tool that broadly address best practices, effective teaching, no matter what your subject specific unit of study is, as long as when we're talking about public administration holistically, that's what you all are going to have to decide. So we're going to have to be politically correct at this point in time, but I'm not sure what would be, and I think we would sit down and say, here, let's take a sample tool. Here are the indicators of effective teaching. Effective teaching. What do you think is not a good indicator for the courses you teach? And let's just do that on an individual basis.
Okay. Jose, do you have your hand up still?
I did. Hi, everybody. So, I mean, since we're on this subject anyway, you know, a concern I have, given that I'm on tenure track and don't have tenure yet, is that a lot of what was covered today, you know, a lot of what is produced will go into our records and stuff. So if the students comment on this content, if we, you know, in our evaluations are discussing these things, like, that's where my concern is. Do we also have to ensure that, I hate to say it, but it is what I feel, that we whitewash all of these communications because they're going to go into the file?
I still think that's something individual. Go ahead, Dr. White. I still think that's something individual. That's a little broad for me to see. That's too specific for me right now, for me to really get a better understanding. But Dr. White?
Well, I was going to say, I feel like we're evaluating pedagogy, right? Not the content.
Yeah, but we're going to also get student feedback.
Well,
right. So the students can bring it up, for instance. And there I might not be able to change it if it's in their evaluations, not in
And
my.
I think that yours is is public administration one of those departments where it's required by your licensing standard or whoever your accrediting body. And so that has already been sent to, the provost's office. And so they are aware of the courses where that's a requirement. And then the other ones that are not a requirement, they're an elective.
And
So
also
we had to identify what was an elective. So yes, I teach a class on media images of Black women. It's not a required course, but if you signed up for it, you understand that's what we're going to be talking about.
And we learned also from the faculty senate leader from the UNC system that there are options for waivers. And so different provosts or academic leaders we thought, wow, that's new. So you do have folks are bringing a request for a waiver when it comes to DEI. I think they mentioned that last Friday, right? So those of you who were there at the chancellor's celebration, that was
what we had to do, because we had to identify which courses were required. So this is a require. I think nursing was one, criminal justice, social work, well, maybe not criminal justice, but social work. They had required things that were specifically DEI, psychology. So you can't get around that. So for that, I can't see, even if you use the tool, that we're not necessarily talking about the specific content. I mean, do you know what you're talking about? But not necessarily we find something problematic in that you're teaching about DEI. So that would be what I would say. And any student who's commenting is you're probably already covered.
Also, we know that according to our policy, is that student ratings of instruction will suffice if it's the only thing. And I don't remember any statements that are on there that directly will refer to DEI or socioeconomic that would go into your record as something negative. So again, we're looking at, I would go minimum. If you were concerned about what's going on in your record, then minimally just do the student rating of instruction as an indicator of teaching effectiveness.
Okay, thank you all for coming. We are out of time. I see the department chairs on here. If your department chair is not on here, but you feel like they could benefit from the information, tell them to come tomorrow at 2:30. We'll be doing this again. And then, of course, in the fall, we'll have some other things that'll give you even more tools. So again, we wanted to make sure that everybody was in compliance and had enough information to do the evaluation for this year. But thank you all so much.